right, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order the open meeting for Thursday, December 15th, 2022, and ask the Commission Secretary for information on today's agenda.
Each commissioner has independently reviewed the minutes of the open meeting of Thursday, December 8th, 2022, and each has informed me there's no need to discuss the minutes.
Move we approve the minutes of Thursday, December 8th, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Each commissioner has independently reviewed the agenda, and each has informed me there is no need to discuss the notices associated with agenda items 2 through 5, the draft final decision and delegation of authority associated with agenda item 8 and docket 5 AE 241, or the draft final decision on reopening associated with agenda item 11 and docket 3270 UR 124.
I move we approve the notices of investigation associated with agenda items 2 and 3.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I move we approve the notices of proceeding associated with agenda items 4 and 5.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Agenda item 6, docket, nope, we're talking about that one. In docket 5 AE 241, I move we approve the draft final decision and proposed delegation of authority.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Agenda item 11, docket 3270 UR 124, I move we approve the draft final decision.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that brings us to agenda item 6, which is docket 6680-AE-122. This is an application for approval of affiliated interest agreements related to Wisconsin Power and Light Company's ownership and operation of solar projects, the draft final decision. We issued that on December 6th, where we approved the affiliated interest agreements, and we issued the draft order, and Wisconsin Power and Light came back with a list of 5 clarifications that they suggested, as well as an additional order point related to accounting reporting. And I was fine with our draft final decision and incorporating the suggested modifications proposed by Wisconsin Power and Light as outlined in their December 13th, 2022 letter to us. Commissioner Nowak?
Okay. Yeah, the decision itself, I didn't have any other changes except some of what the utility had proposed. I will tell you that the third one, I think I have the most concern about, because I'm not really sure what they were asking for clarification, and then they didn't provide language about it. So I'm not sure what language they specifically want us to add. We could put something in there. Plus, I don't know that I think it's duplicative anyway. I mean, the order is based on the agreements which are drafted. So sometimes by adding more clarification, I think, tend to confuse things. I was fine with, there were some technical changes. They noted in numbers 2 and numbers 4 in their as it's numbered on their responses. So those were fine, because those were just some mistakes, I think, on our end, citing some statutes and including some things. First one I could live without.
Yeah.
I don't know that we need to add it. I'm usually a fan of leaving things out, so I would tend to leave that one out. And the last one as well, I don't think we need to add. And just going with my why restate things that exist. So I would for sure accept their changes to 2 and 4. I wouldn't accept number 3, and I could live with 1 and 5.
Okay. All right, Commissioner
Yahtzee. Okay.
Yeah, see.
I'm ready for the holidays. All right, so I was at accepting the 2nd, the 4th, and the 5th.
Oh, boy, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Second.
You were okay with those?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yep.
we have, you and I are the
You're-
same on
you
number
have
3.
2.
Yep, and I wouldn't accept number 3 because of the lack of clarity of what to add.
All right.
The 5th I thought was fine, in specifically that we do have access to the books and records.
Yeah.
But this one gives themselves a deadline of 30 days, which I said, okay, that's, if you want to
Yeah, that's
definitively provide it in 30 days, I was fine with that. And I
Right.
think generally this
Yeah.
is a large dollar amount
Yeah.
that probably made sense.
Like I
So
said,
I
I
was-
could live with that one.
Okay, and then on one, I guess, my understanding was it, there's, the IRA is a humongous bill, so adding these couple of sentences maybe didn't, there's a lot more in that bill. So it just didn't seem necessary to add those sentences in, given that situation, so.
Yeah, I
My
didn't know if
inclination
this-
was to not include it.
Yeah, because I didn't know that the summary of what the PTC, like,
Yeah,
it exists outside of the
Right.
agreement anyway.
And
Right.
stating it doesn't change that fact.
right.
Right.
Stating it or not, right, doesn't
Right.
change what the IRA is, so, yeah. So,
Okay. So by my count, I'm going to join you both, which means we're accepting number 2, 4, and 5, and we're leaving out 1 and 3.
Yeah,
okay, sounds good.
okay. Then I will move in docket 6680, we approve the draft final decision pursuant to our discussion today.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Okay, the next item on our agenda, agenda item 7 is docket 1-IC-541. This is a supplemental request for intervenor comp from Walnut Way Conservation Corp. They are seeking an additional $17,388 to cover attorney time related to the WEC rate case. And they filed their supplemental material and explained the additional time that their legal team had to spend at the public hearing, as well as review of the settlement agreement in this case. And so I didn't have any modifications to the request. I was at alternative 1. I would fully fund this supplemental IC request. Commissioner Nowak.
Yeah, I was consistent with my underlying, in their initial request. I didn't approve it, and I'll stay not approving even the supplemental for a few more reasons in addition to what I stated, what was probably a few months ago now. One, we have to look at the code, and the code says that under 3.02, without the compensation, it has to cause significant financial harm. Again, reviewing the financials here, this is an organization that has the financial means to, they had a lot of liquid dollars. They have millions of dollars in assets, and a lot of it is liquid. They do receive a lot of funding via grants, but there was a lot of that wasn't, at least what I saw, wasn't restricted. So they didn't, to me, make a demonstration of financial harm. And I also thought that their comment about, well, there was a settlement and we had to look at it more. Well, if there wasn't a settlement, it would have been other issues moving forward. So that to me wasn't a convincing argument. Typically in settlements, we see the interveners using less money, and I know they weren't a signator to it, but still, that one was not a convincing argument. But really, I'm going to fall back on what the code says, and they didn't make a demonstration of financial harm since they do have the adequate assets to proceed here. And I know Commissioner Hebner, last time we talked about this, you brought up, well, we do pay others, and that's not the code. Like, we have to look narrowly just at what is this applicant coming to us for, and what is this applicant's financial situation. So I think we have to stick to that. So I will be at alternative 3.
Commissioner Hebner?
Yeah, I was at alternative 1, and basically, we did approve this initially, and the case did change, and I thought the work that was completed was voluminous. Their response to the settlement, don't agree on the merits, but the work was there, the need was there to respond to that agreement. And so I guess I didn't have a problem with this. I'll also note that they did not request funds for their expert witness, who also provided a lot of response to that settlement agreement, supplemental testimony, et cetera, that is basically, in my view, a cost share because they're not asking for funds for the extra work that their witness did. So I think that they do have skin in the game on this, which is something that I think is really important. And I thought that it was reasonable, so I'm at alt 1.
Okay.
So I would move then in docket, just give me one sec, don't have that in front of me. Docket 1, IC 541, that we approve the request for supplemental intervenor compensation.
The second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Okay. We move to agenda item 9, which is docket 4220-TE-111. This relates to some revisions provided by Northern States Power Company for their Resiliency Service Pilot Program. We approved the pilot program earlier this year, and then the applicant came back and they're proposing an additional revision in response to the Inflation Reduction Act. They're also proposing to change the service agreement term, carrying costs, and then the construction or contribution in aid of construction. They're seeking the ability to negotiate that with their customers. And also the design and engineering payments, they're seeking a change to those, how those are paid for by the customers. And then finally, they're asking us to allow for what is referred to as a sinking fund. So I kind of thought of that, and it's almost like an escrow account where they would hold the dollars from the customer, and they would keep it segregated. And then if need be, they would then dip into those funds to help pay for specific O&M costs related. And so I did not have any concerns with their proposed changes. I was at alternative 1 for all 5 of their changes. And then so overall, the 6th decision point is whether or not to approve it as modified. So I was at alt 1 across the board for this one. Commissioner Nowak.
Yeah, I did look at this, and I think this is one of the reasons why we do pilots and they're small, because some of these changes grew out of some initial discussions they've had with some potential customers or things, because not everything is designed perfectly the right way around. So I appreciate them coming back soon and starting to make some suggested changes going forward. I didn't have any modifications after I reviewed it, and I had a couple clarifying questions with staff on it. I think I was at alternative 2 on the first one, though, on the service agreement. I think it had a little more of it was another suggestion that they reevaluate the revisions based on data collected from the pilot and future rate case proceedings. I could go with 1. It doesn't have to be in a rate case proceeding. They could do it outside of that, so I don't.
That's interesting. That was my initial take, and then I heard your voice inside my head of, they're going to do that anyway.
Yes, I know.
So why do we need to
so now,
require
and
it?
I'm saying, yeah. So and as I'm talking through it, I'm like, it makes sense to do it alternative. So I'm hearing my voice in my head.
Yes.
See, I'm glad I'm getting through once in a while. It's a test. It's a test. So I'll be alternative 1 on all of them.
Commissioner Huebner?
Yeah, my inclination was to be at alternative 2 on the first one as well, and then alternative 1, going through the rest of them until, alt 2 as well on the final one, just because of the same. So if you're now at alt 1 on
Yeah,
everything, I'll
yep.
join you all at
Okay.
alt 1 on it. I
Okay.
just thought that the condition did make sense. I agree with you on the sinking fund, Chair, that I'm not sure if that is accomplishing the insurance kind of idea, so I hope that there's continued dialogue and conversation with customers about options related to that. I'm fine with this as an option, but it basically looks like an escrow to me too, so I don't think it hurts anything.
Well, the customers could always just do it on their own.
And the customers can do it on their own.
They probably do that for other maintenance
so-
funds anyway, one would hope.
So, yeah, I can join you all at alt 1
Okay.
across the board, so.
Then in docket 4220 TE 111, I move that we approve the revisions to Northern State Power Company Wisconsin's Resiliency Service Pilot Program pursuant to our discussion today.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that moves us to agenda item 10, which is docket 6690-EI-113. Earlier this year, We Work a Group filed a petition requesting that we grant a waiver of the administrative code related to individual electric metering requirements for a multi-dwelling unit residential building. We have specific authority to grant waivers. There are two provisions under which we can grant waivers. One is that in multi-dwelling unit residential buildings, if the applicant can show that the electric equipment under tenant control is substantially more efficient than required by applicable codes, and that the overall electric usage under tenant control is minimal, we are able, under the code, to grant a waiver. And if it doesn't fit within that provision, we also have an ability to grant a waiver based on unique, exceptional, or unusual situations. And earlier this year, I think it was this year, we did issue a waiver for a specific instance in MG&E's service territory. This one, I won't bury the lead. This one, in my mind, falls well short of meeting the applicable code language upon which we could grant a waiver. So initially, when I went through and I read all of the information, I thought, oh, okay, this is a transient dwelling. So then it would potentially make sense to be able to grant a waiver. But then digging deeper, and staff had follow-up questions, it's clear that this is not a transient dwelling unit, and so it doesn't fit under the initial provision of the code that would allow for a waiver of the individual metering requirements. And then second was the applicant is representing that, it has monitored the energy usage and the energy costs, and really what my takeaway was that they thought it was going to be administratively easier for them to have a single meter. And that's not the purpose of the individual metering requirements. The purpose of the individual metering requirements is, in my mind, really boils down to being able to send the correct price signal about consumption to individual users of electricity. It also provides consumer protection. And that, to me, in this particular instance, was very concerning. Just the proposal that they were going to charge everybody a flat fee, and that would include their energy and their heat, and that they weren't going to disconnect, that they would use other manners by which to deal with individual tenants. And I think that that's a really dangerous path to go down. And so I think for purposes of being consistent with the purpose and the intent of the individual metering requirements, I do not think that they meet the definition of a transient multi-dwelling building. So for that decision point, on page 7 of our memo, I'm at Alt 2. And then the equipment under tenant control, I don't think that was demonstrated. I kept going back to, well, it's going to be less paperwork, and it's going to make it easier for us to manage our apartment building. I think that falls well short of the purpose of the administrative code. So for purposes of granting the waiver, I was at Alt 3. I would deny their request. Commissioner Nowak.
Yeah, this one, and I didn't agree with the Madison situation either. I don't think, this one is also not a situation where a waiver is warranted. First, they clearly don't fit under a transient, one of the specified exceptions for that. Some of the units will be shorter-term leases, but there will still be many that are, a year. A lot of landlords do that around the state, and that's just the cost of business of being a landlord. We live in a city where there's lots of people coming and going all the time, and it's a busy season, I think, for MG&E, and when students come and go, and so that happens. So that was not, so they don't qualify under a transient multi-unit dwelling for a variety of reasons. And then this is not a special or unusual circumstance that would warrant us to still grant a waiver. I also did find it'll be less paperwork for us. Well, that's not what the code says. And, we'll install, if we have to do one unit, it'll be less efficient. I don't know that. They just said that, and it almost felt like a bit of a threat. There was no evidence in the record it would be that they couldn't find something nearly to be as efficient. And I also thought, they showed some examples of where they didn't give price signals, and they said that it wasn't out of control. And I'm like, that's a nice 5 or so you picked. Where's the rest? So this one, to me, was not a close call, that this doesn't fall under the exception for a waiver. So I would not grant it.
Commissioner Huebner?
Yeah, thank you. Yep, I came to the same conclusion as you on the first one, which is alternative 2, that it doesn't meet the definition of transient multi-dwelling. I thought it was close, but I think at the end of the day, it came down to the marketing plan. I mean, I don't think it's a bad marketing plan to have an all-encompassing internet, heat, water, electric. That concept, is an interesting one. Would make it easier, but we have this code. And so to me, it was close, but not quite. The one thing that I would, question, I was kind of maybe we could lay this over almost, because they did mention the renewable energy. And there is a section of this code that specifically talks about when an alternative renewable energy resource is utilized. And it says, in connection with central heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems. So that could be something that could be followed up on. But if you guys are at deny, then that's where it's going to land. It may be something that this entity wants to investigate further, is if they really are going to install that renewable energy, to what extent does that change the determination? But it was clear they had talked about it. It was not clear that was going to happen. In the previous one that we looked at, there was quotes and there was, specific things from solar contractor about here's exactly what we're going to install, which is not present here. So I was at alt 2 on the first one. I can join you on alt 3 at the second one.
Okay.
So let's.
Before I started to
do that.
lose my voice, I forgot I wanted to address that solar part. And first of all, the number of appliances under control of the tenant here was pretty substantial.
Yeah,
I mean,
washer and dryer included is something.
I mean,
yeah.
that was, and some of them are Energy Star, but there was no analysis of, if there was a code, is that more stringent, is that better than the code?
Yeah.
There was nothing about
Right.
that in the
Yeah.
record. And then, we have the solar thing again. And there was no evidence that it's something that, well, we kind of want to do it someday. That's how I read it.
Right.
And maybe they will, that's great. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be more efficient. You're still using the energy, and now it's a matter of where it's coming from. And unless they can help, it's tied to the AC units, I don't see where it's really going to help with what they're drawing off the utility system anyway, help avoid the peak. So I think that can't be a reason going forward unless there's some demonstration that it's somehow efficient. It's just drawing different energy. And it's not necessarily sending also different price signals to people if it's there, so.
Yeah, and I'll just respond too with just for the benefit of this applicant, because I thought I had read that the water heating is going to be centralized, the HVAC is going to be centralized, but I thought I read somewhere that, well, if this isn't granted, we're going to switch our HVAC system. So just to point out to them that under this code, number 4B, when you combine, it says, for the purpose of carrying out the provisions, individual unit metering will not be required for electricity used in central heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems. So my read of that is the HVAC system can be centralized for the whole building without needing to be individually metered. But what the decision here is today is all those individual appliances within the units will need to be, each unit will need a meter. So just for the benefit of the applicant, that I don't think they need to change their HVAC design to comply with this. That's my read of this. Some lawyer can interpret that, but that's what I read it as.
Yeah.
All right, with that,
All right.
thank you, Commissioner.
In docket 6690 EI 113, I move that we deny the request of Reworka Group LLC for a waiver of Wisconsin Administrative Code PSC 113-0803 sub 1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that concludes our official business for today. Our next open meeting is scheduled for Thursday, December 22nd, 2022 at 10:30 a.m.
Move we stand adjourned until the 22nd of December.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.